Look closely into the blinding light. What you are witnessing is the brightest star in our night sky, Sirius A. For thousands of years, humanity looked up at the constellation of Canis Major and saw only this single, fiercely burning giant. But hidden deep within its overwhelming halo is a ghost, an ultra-dense white dwarf star known to modern astrophysics as Sirius B. It is one of the heaviest objects in our immediate cosmic neighborhood, and it is completely, utterly, and absolutely invisible to the naked human eye. Modern science didn't officially discover it until we pointed highly advanced refracting telescopes at the heavens. But what if I told you that an isolated, pre-industrial tribe living deep in the remote cliffs of West Africa supposedly knew about this invisible ghost star centuries before modern astronomers? Welcome back, truth seekers and space detectives. Today, we are tearing apart one of the most fiercely debated astronomical mysteries in the history of human civilization. Can you believe this? A civilization with absolutely no optical instruments, no industrial technology, and no modern observatories supposedly possessed a terrifyingly accurate map of the cosmos. They allegedly knew the exact density, the mass, and the 50-year elliptical orbit of a white dwarf. Today, we are diving into the legendary Dogon Sirius mystery. For decades, this baffling story has been the holy grail for ancient astronaut theorists. Did extraterrestrial beings literally descend from the Sirius system to teach advanced astrophysics to humans? Or are we looking at the absolute greatest mathematically flawed scientific illusion in human history? Pay close attention to this, because the truth we are about to uncover will rewrite your entire understanding of human genius. Let's get into it. To truly understand the sheer magnitude of this cosmic paradox, we have to strip away the mythology and look at hard, unforgiving astrophysics. Because the universe has strict rules, and human biology has absolute ceilings. Some enthusiastic theorists try to argue that perhaps atmospheric conditions enacted as a giant natural lens, or that ancient humans simply had vastly superior eyesight, allowing them to spot Sirius B. Let me stop you right there. What they are suggesting is not just difficult, it is a strict physiological and mathematical optical impossibility. And as a researcher, I do not use the word impossibility lightly. We need to talk about a fundamental scientific law known as the Rayleigh criterion. Listen to me carefully, because this is where the extraterrestrial theories fall apart completely. In the realm of optical physics, the Rayleigh criterion defines the absolute maximum resolution limit of a perfectly healthy human eye when adapted to complete darkness. It dictates exactly how close two separate points of light can be, before the human brain and retina simply merge them into a single glowing blur. For a human being, that absolute biological limit is roughly 60 arc seconds. You cannot train your eyes to see better than this. Now, let's look at the Sirius binary system. Sirius A is a blazing cosmic beacon with an apparent visual magnitude of negative 1.46. Its hidden companion, Sirius B, is a remarkably dim positive 8.44. In astronomical terms, this means Sirius A is an astonishing 10,000 times brighter than Sirius B. Do you see the massive problem here? 60 arc seconds is what we biologically need. But the maximum angular separation between these two celestial bodies, the absolute furthest apart they ever get in their 50-year orbital dance, is a microscopic 11.3 arc seconds. 11.3. Trying to see Sirius B with the naked human eye is the exact biological equivalent of trying to spot a single dying firefly sitting directly on the glass of a blinding military searchlight from 10 miles away. It simply cannot be done. Some desperate holdouts try to save the alien dream by pointing to the red Sirius anomaly. Ancient Roman texts famously recorded Sirius as being red. Could Sirius B have been a massive, highly visible red giant during human history? Astrophysics gives us a definitive answer. Absolutely not. Stellar evolution is agonizingly slow. For Sirius B to transition from a massive red giant to its current collapsed white dwarf state took an estimated 123 million years. Early hominids didn't even exist. Furthermore, gravitational lensing doesn't create a massive magnifying glass for the naked eye. It only creates a microscopic eclipse. The red hue seen by the ancients was merely telluric extinction, the exact same atmospheric Rayleigh scattering that makes our own sun look blood red during a dusty sunset. So if it was mathematically impossible for them to see it, how on earth did Marcel Griaule record that the tribe knew all about it? The rabbit hole goes even deeper. According to Griaule's explosive notes, the Dogon didn't just know about Sirius B. They mysteriously claimed to know about the 4 Galilean moons of Jupiter and the rings of Saturn. Do you know what the weirdest part is? Moons and rings are celestial bodies that you literally fundamentally cannot perceive without optical glass. When a legendary astrophysicist, alongside a fellow researcher, looked at this data, they recognized a massive red flag. This wasn't indigenous star lore. This read exactly like a textbook of 19th century European astronomy. Sagan pointed out a phenomenon called cultural contamination. But who brought this highly specific cutting-edge astrophysics to a remote Malian tribe before the 1930s? We have the historical smoking gun, and it is absolutely devastating. On April 16, 1893, a spectacular total solar eclipse swept directly across West Africa. And to study it, a highly elite French astronomy expedition led by the renowned astronomer Henri-Alexandre Deslandres traveled precisely to this region. This team of European scientists didn't just pass through. They set up a massive camp and lived side by side with the local populations for 5 whole weeks. Now, remember the timeline. Sirius B had just been optically confirmed in 1862. By 1893, it was the absolute biggest pop science gossip of the global astronomical community. Imagine the scene. French astronomers sitting around campfires with their local guides for over a month under the pristine African sky. They let the locals look through their brass telescopes. They enthusiastically talk about the newly discovered invisible heavy star orbiting Sirius, the moons of Jupiter, and the rings of Saturn. Over the next 40 years, through the rich West African tradition of oral storytelling, this fascinating European astro-gossip seamlessly wove its way into the local mythology. By the time Marcel Griaule arrived in the 1930s, he sat down with his blind translator, Ogotem, and essentially recorded an echo of European astronomy disguised as ancient African myth. But the absolute final death blow to the alien theory came decades later, in 1991. Anthropologist Walter van Beek decided it was time to reevaluate the legend. Van Beek traveled to the exact same cliffs, stood on the exact same soil, and spent years living deeply within the Dogon culture. His discovery completely humiliated the original 1930s research. When he asked the elders about Potolo and the invisible companion star, they looked at him in total confusion. They had absolutely no indigenous knowledge of a binary star system. But it gets worse. It gets so much worse. Griaule had rigidly, strictly claimed that the Dogon celebrated their most sacred ceremony, the Sigwi festival, exactly every 50 years to perfectly honor the 50-year orbit of Sirius B. It was the absolute anchor of his entire theory. But Van Beek's meticulous, peer-reviewed field research uncovered a colossal mathematical error. The Dogon do not celebrate the Sigwi festival every 50 years. They celebrate it every 60 years. A massive 10-year discrepancy. A 60-year ceremonial cycle has absolutely nothing to do with the orbital mechanics of Sirius B. Instead, it perfectly matches the cyclical earthly alignments of highly visible planets like Jupiter and Venus against the horizon. Marcel Griaule suffered from a monumental case of confirmation bias. He practically force-fed the 50-year astronomical data to his blind guide through heavily leading questions. Today, if you go to Mali, modern Dogon guides will happily tell you the magical story of Sirius B. But anthropologists call this a classic feedback effect. They don't tell the story because it's their ancient heritage. They tell it because Western tourists desperately want to hear about ancient aliens, and the alien myth brings in lucrative tourism money. Now, you might be feeling a bit disappointed. You might be thinking, so the great African astronomical mystery was nothing but a mirage? No. And this is exactly where the narrative gets flipped entirely on its head. Because while Western researchers were desperately looking up at the sky, trying to project their own sci-fi alien fantasies onto the Dogon, they completely, tragically ignored the breathtaking scientific genius that was actually under their feet. These ancient African civilizations didn't need invisible stars to prove their brilliance. They were building telescopeless supercomputers right here on Earth. Behold the monumental Tondidaru megaliths of Mali, dating back to 600-700 AD, and the staggering Senegambian stone circles, a vast network of over 1,000 intricately arranged monuments. These weren't just religious graves, they were colossal, hyper-accurate horizon calendars. By engineering terrestrial geometry, these ancient astronomers calculated incredibly complex celestial mechanics. Without a single piece of glass, they tracked year lunar standstill cycles, solar solstices, and planetary movements using advanced shadow mechanics and perfectly placed eastern horizon marker stones. They possessed a mastery of terrestrial geometry that took decades of generational observation to encode into solid rock. But if you think that's impressive, prepare yourself for the ultimate shock. We need to leave astronomy and enter the realm of pure, unadulterated mathematics. We all sit here today believing that computer logic, the digital architecture of ones and zeros running the very camera I'm looking into right now, is a strictly modern Western invention, born in the laboratories of Alan Turing or Silicon Valley. Think again. Centuries before the dawn of the digital age, the mathematical heart of modern software, the base 2 or binary logic system, was being actively and flawlessly used in West Africa. Among the Niger-Congo language groups, specifically the Yoruba people, there exists an ancient divination system known as Ifa. To the arrogant colonial eye, it looked like primitive religious magic. But modern mathematicians know exactly what it is. By casting an opele chain, or meticulously manipulating sacred palm nuts, the practitioner generates a rigid sequence of binary states, single or double marks, open or closed, zeros and ones. These marks are mathematically grouped into octets. In mathematical terms, 2 to the power of 8 yields exactly 256 distinct mathematical configurations. Each of these 256 configurations acts as an intricate data retrieval system, a massive memory bank holding countless verses of astronomical, medical, and agricultural data. They didn't just guess the future, they calculated the variables of human existence using a literal, functioning, ancient analog supercomputer. The Dogon knowledge of Sirius B was not a gift from aquatic aliens in spaceships. It wasn't ancient magic. It was a fascinating collision of 19th century European astronomy expeditions, oral storytelling, and the devastating confirmation bias of anthropologists who wanted a mystical story so badly that they forced it onto a culture that didn't need it. Marcel Griaule was so utterly obsessed with dressing Africa in Western sci-fi fantasies that he was entirely blind to the profound, indigenous scientific reality standing right in front of his face. The true genius of ancient West Africa didn't require invisible stars. It was built on a foundation of massive megalithic engineering, horizon astronomy, and abstract binary mathematics that predated the digital revolution by centuries. We love to look at the past through the lens of our own modern obsessions. We search for aliens because we are fascinated by space travel. But in doing so, we rob human history of its own magnificent ingenuity. Ancient humanity didn't need aliens to be brilliant. So, I have a massive question for you all, and I really want to see your thoughts down below. Now I am asking you directly. Just because it doesn't fit our expected mystical stories or our Hollywood alien fantasies, how many other ancient civilizations throughout human history have had their massive, true scientific capacities completely ignored by us? Are we still underestimating the ancient human mind's view of the sky? Let's meet in the comments and hash it out. Thank you for watching. Keep looking up, but never forget to look closely at the earth beneath your feet. Until next time,